74 charges. That's the staggering number that hit Chelsea just days ago, sending shockwaves through Stamford Bridge and leaving fans wondering if their beloved club is heading for disaster. When England's Football Association drops a bombshell of this magnitude involving alleged breaches spanning over a decade, you know we're dealing with something unprecedented in football history. But here's what makes this story truly fascinating. Chelsea didn't try to hide these violations, they actually reported themselves to the authorities. So how did the Blues find themselves facing one of the largest regulatory cases in recent football memory? And more importantly, how bad could this get for the club that's already endured years of uncertainty? The charges range from 2009 to 2022 and primarily relate to events between the 2010 to 11 to 2015 to 16 seasons, a period that represents some of Chelsea's most successful years under Roman Abramovich's ownership. We're talking about the era when the Blues lifted their first Champions League trophy, secured multiple Premier League titles, and established themselves as a European powerhouse. The FA's statement reveals something crucial. These aren't minor administrative oversights. The 74 breaches relate to alleged agent payments during Roman Abramovich's ownership, largely focused between 2010 and 2016. To put this into perspective, most clubs facing similar charges deal with single-digit numbers. Chelsea's case involves 74 separate alleged violations. What exactly are these charges about? The FA has accused Chelsea of breaching regulations on working with intermediaries, third-party investment in players, and football agent regulations. In simpler terms, the club allegedly made payments worth millions of pounds related to player signings that were never properly registered in their official accounts submitted to the FA, Premier League, or UEFA. Three names keep surfacing in this investigation: Eden Hazard, Willian, and Samuel Eto'o. These weren't just any signings, they were marquee acquisitions that helped define Chelsea's golden era. Hazard's transfer from Lille in 2012 for £32 million immediately comes under scrutiny. Former Manchester United manager Sir Alex Ferguson had previously claimed that his club missed out on signing the Belgian because of what he described as excessive agent fees. Ferguson stated at the time, in the Hazard deal, Chelsea paid the agent £6 million. This comment now takes on new significance given the current charges. Also, given his status as one of their greatest ever players, Chelsea may face harsher penalties because of how well the transfer turned out. The following year brought Willian and Samuel from Russian club Anzhi Makachkala. Willian's transfer was particularly dramatic. He was literally on the verge of joining Tottenham, even completing a medical at Spurs before dramatically switching to Chelsea at the last moment. The circumstances surrounding these deals are now central to the FA's investigation, but it's crucial to emphasize that none of these players are accused of any wrongdoing. The allegations center on off-books payments that were allegedly approved directly by Abramovich, potentially involving payments to agents and officials through offshore entities. This story takes a remarkable turn when we examine how these charges came to light. When Todd Boehly and Clearlake Capital's consortium purchased Chelsea in May 2022 for £2.5 billion, they conducted extensive due diligence. During this process, they discovered what they described as potentially incomplete financial reporting concerning historical transactions. Rather than sweep these findings under the carpet, the new ownership made a calculated decision that would define their tenure. They self-reported everything to the authorities. They informed the Premier League and UEFA about the discrepancies they'd uncovered. This transparency would prove crucial to how this case unfolds. The new owners were so concerned about potential hidden liabilities that they withheld £100 million from the purchase price. This £100 million buffer was specifically reserved to cover any unforeseen liabilities that might emerge from the Abramovich era. To understand the severity of these charges, we need to examine what Chelsea allegedly violated. The FA's regulations are explicit about agent payments and intermediary dealings. Rule C2 states that clubs must not arrange matters as to conceal or misrepresent the reality and substance of any matters in relation to transaction or contract negotiation. The regulations on working with intermediaries are equally strict, guarding against paying anyone acting as an intermediary who isn't properly registered or operating under a valid contract. Chelsea allegedly made payments through offshore companies, circumventing these established protocols. What makes this particularly serious is the potential sporting advantage these alleged violations might have provided. If Chelsea was making undisclosed payments to secure player signings, they could have gained an unfair edge over competitors who were following the rules. However, Chelsea has commissioned independent accountancy work, suggesting they would have passed financial sustainability thresholds even if all payments had been properly declared. Various news outlets report that there will not be a points deduction or sporting sanction if the charges are upheld, but Chelsea could face a punishment similar to their recent European settlement, a €10 million fine. This assessment is based on several mitigating factors working in Chelsea's favour. First, the club's unprecedented transparency throughout the process. Chelsea has provided comprehensive access to their files and historical data, cooperating fully with investigators. Second, the current ownership bears no responsibility for these alleged violations. They actually discovered and reported them. Third, most of these breaches occurred over a decade ago under completely different management. UEFA has already set a precedent by fining Chelsea £8.6 million in 2023 for incomplete financial reporting covering similar periods. The European governing body specifically praised Chelsea for proactively approaching them to tackle the issue. Historical cases provide additional context. Wigan faced a £40,000 fine in 2014, Brighton paid £90,000 in 2015, and Reading was fined £200,000 last year for similar but smaller scale intermediary violations. However, none of these cases approach the scale of Chelsea's 74 charges. Manager Enzo Maresca's response to the charges reveals the club's current mindset. When questioned about the situation, he admitted, "I know from the club that they are satisfied with the situation about the process. Personally, I don't have anything to add. Firstly, because I don't have any idea." This response reflects Chelsea's confidence that their cooperation and transparency will result in favourable treatment. The club has until September 19th to respond to the charges, though this deadline could be extended given the complexity of the case. An independent regulatory commission will ultimately decide Chelsea's fate, but the Blues aren't expected to contest the charges. This case represents more than just Chelsea's regulatory troubles. It highlights the broader evolution of football's financial oversight. The sport has become increasingly vigilant about agent payments and third-party influences, recognizing how these arrangements can distort competitive balance. Chelsea's situation also demonstrates how ownership changes can expose historical problems. The Bowley Clear Lake Consortium's thorough due diligence uncovered issues that might have remained hidden under different circumstances. Their decision to self-report shows a commitment to operating under different standards than the previous regime. While 74 charges sounds catastrophic, the reality may be less dramatic. Chelsea's extensive cooperation, the change in ownership, and the historical nature of most violations suggest a financial penalty rather than sporting sanctions. The club has already factored potential fines into their financial planning, with sources indicating no concerns about Premier League profit and sustainability compliance. The Premier League's ongoing separate investigation adds another layer to this story, but Chelsea appears confident that their transparent approach will ultimately protect them from the most severe consequences. As this unprecedented case unfolds, it serves as a turning point for football regulation, demonstrating that even the most powerful clubs cannot escape consequences for past violations, while also showing that cooperation and transparency remain the best path forward when facing regulatory challenges. What do you think of the situation, and do you think a fine will be a fair punishment for them? Let us know in the comments. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel. Also, be sure to turn on post notifications so that you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time. Bye.